I used my first time home buyer RRSP savings towards
Yes.
the purchase. So that was a
Amazing.
fun
Incentive.
fact. That's how I bought my first home, right? That was how I got in.
Absolutely. And a lot of people utilize that. Another interesting incentive, it's called the first time home buyer incentive.
Okay.
So this was launched in 2019.
Right.
And just last week, the federal government announced they are trashing it.
Oh, snap.
So
Okay, I guess
really-
that didn't go as planned.
Oh my God.
I mean, I remember, Anita, when they came out with it, and I was like, they sounded a bit shady to me, but... I'm Cynthia Ostos, team leader and broker at eXp Realty here in the Greater Toronto Area. Welcome to Beyond the Sale, a real estate podcast where we discuss everything beyond the sale. Welcome back to the Beyond the Sale podcast. I'm your host, Cynthia Ostos, broker and team leader with eXp Realty in Mississauga. I'm here today with my amazing friend and teammate, Anita Fervaha.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for being on the show again.
Thank you so much, Cynthia, for having me. I am so excited to be here and excited to have this chat with you.
Yes, I'm excited too. And we're filming this. It's March. What are we at? March 7th here. Brand new month, International Women's Month. So this time around, all my guests are women. Anita, how are you doing today?
I am fabulous, Cynthia. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Actually, I'm really passionate about the topic that we're going to be discussing today, which is first-time home buyers, what it's like to be a first-time home buyer in 2024. So we've got lots to cover, but some of the topics we're going to talk about are some of the challenges that first-time home buyers have in just getting into the market. We're going to chat about some of the incentives as well, which you definitely know a lot about. And then, of course, how a first-time home buyer can set themselves up for success, because it is so challenging to actually just get into the market. So how a first-time home buyer can set themselves up for success, because it is so hard to get into the market, right? What are your thoughts, Anita? Let's talk about challenges that first-time home buyers come across and have.
Absolutely. What I hear most is down payment, coming up with the funds. Because realistically, in the GTA, you need a minimum of about $30,000. And that's really difficult to come up with that kind of cash, right?
So let's say like 5% is what someone would need, of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest challenge that I hear.
Yeah. So to add to that, I would say, so getting qualified as well, of course, because the stress test being what it is, right? So let's say 5% is the Bank of Canada rate. They add, is it 2 points on top? So you're having to qualify at 7%.
Absolutely. Because the lenders, they want to assure that if the rates go up, that you're still going to be able to make the mortgage payment.
Which we all know. And
absolutely.
we should be grateful for the stress test, especially, let's say, in the past year or two, where people really saw those rates start to jump up from like 2-3%. Now people were paying 5-6-7%, depending on what their rate was, right? So that is one of the reasons why the stress test actually was implemented back in, I think it was 2017, 2018. And the other thing I would say in addition to that is just the price point, right? So just preparing for today's episode, I actually did a little bit of research. So it's interesting. So we're filming this March 2024. So about 2 months, let's say, of data. So fun fact, Anita, the cheapest freehold in Mississauga. So freehold property, no condo fees. The cheapest one that sold year to date, so again, it's only been 2 months, let's say, give or take, but $769,000. And that was, let's say, the very cheapest. And then the next up was $850,000, like that next jump up. So 100,000 more. For people that might think, oh, okay, I can buy a property for $500,000 freehold. Like that just doesn't exist, right? So I remember getting some of those calls still in and around like 2017, 2018. It's like those days were over for freeholds. And then for condos, the cheapest condo that sold in Mississauga, sorry, these are both from Mississauga, $380,000 for a studio in Erin Mills, no parking. And we're talking about 450 square feet, 380,000. So, those price points, right? Like those sound affordable, but like maybe one or two might be that price, let's say the whole year. And that's when the market is, let's say, not a competitive seller's market.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I would say there are a lot of opportunities that exist in Mississauga now.
Yeah. I think you just recently helped someone buy, just like a few weeks ago.
Yes, absolutely.
First time home buyers.
Yes. Last week. And we purchased a condo in Erin Mills, Mississauga, 1 bed. We have about 650 square feet for $515.
Wow.
So that was a great opportunity for them, and very exciting to have them enter the market and be homeowners.
Yeah. And just to give our viewers an idea, let's say 500,000, what would the mortgage payment be like for that? Let's say.
Yeah. So to purchase something for 500,000, and I just wanted to add that there are a lot of opportunities to purchase it within that 500,000 price point. All throughout Oakville, Mississauga, Toronto even. So a condo definitely doable with that price range. In terms of down payment, you're looking at approximately 30,000, and your monthly mortgage costs are just under 3,000, and that's using like a 5% interest rate.
Right. Okay. The only thing that goes along with that is, let's say you need to qualify for that mortgage. So let's say you just have the 5%. And then, the rest of it you need to qualify for. Like you're going to have to be definitely either making, because it's 4 times your income, right? So you're going to have to be making like 400,000+, or obviously buy with a friend or a partner. I hear there's people on dating apps looking for people to buy property with. I mean, that's sort of what's going on nowadays, but it's qualifying for that mortgage, even if you do have that, let's say 5% saved up or 10%.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. The mortgage plays a huge factor, and you do have to qualify.
For sure.
Absolutely. And a lot of people are also buying with parents or family members. So that's another strategy as well. And the federal government actually has some incentives and some ways. Yeah.
Let's talk about some of those incentives, because I know you really brushed up on what those are. Of course, RRSPs, right? First time home buyer RRSPs. That's always been around for as long as I can remember. But yeah, maybe shed some light on some of those other incentives.
Absolutely. So we can start with the RSP one. This allows the first-time home buyers to withdraw funds from their RSP. So you can withdraw up to a maximum of 35,000,
right,
and that's tax-free. And if you're purchasing with another individual, they can also withdraw 35,000. So you can combine that, and then you have 15 years to repay those funds back to your RSP. So that is one
nice
incentive.
Fun fact. That's how I bought my first home, right? I used my first time home buyer RRSP savings towards the purchase. So that was how I got in.
Absolutely. And a lot of people utilize that because it's hard to have that kind of lump sum cash on a day-to-day basis, right? Another interesting incentive, it's called the first time home buyer incentive.
Okay.
So this was launched in 2019.
Right.
And just last week, the federal government announced they are trashing it.
Oh, snap. Okay, really? I guess that didn't go as planned.
Oh my God.
I remember, Anita, when they came out with this, and I was like, okay, like this is not going to help many people. And there was some caveats to the government helping you. Tell us what those were, because they sounded a bit shady to me, but...
Absolutely. Absolutely. It did have some, sense of failure right from the start. But so the government, the goal of this was the government would provide for resale properties 5% of the down payment, interest free. But then the government is now an equity partner in your home.
Right.
So when you sell down the road, they would get that percentage back as well.
Right.
And there were also some other caveats, like your household income had to be less than $120,000. And really, when you look at affordability, and what you can purchase with under $120,000, you really can't purchase anything in Toronto, Montreal,
Well, and wasn't there like a
Vancouver.
price point? Like it had to be a certain price as well for the property itself? I thought maybe I could be wrong, but
No, it was more around the income.
okay.
And what was really interesting was, so when this program was launched, the government's goal was 100,000 applications. So to help 100,000 families. And in terms of the uptake, it was quite low. So it was only 18,000 applications that they received. So it is winding down at the end of March. So it didn't really go as planned.
Wow. I wonder how much money the government spent to come up with a program that just failed from pretty much the get-go. It sounds like it. But yeah, someone's, I don't know who's going to be in the hot seat for that. Any other incentives that are around still? I think there was another one, right?
Yep. So there was another first home savings account initiative, and it was launched actually just in April of 2023.
Okay.
And what this is, it's like a savings account in a bank, but it is also tax-free, and you can put up to $8,000 a year into this account. And you up to a maximum of $40,000. And then you can use the funds within that account for your first time home purchase. And again, if you're purchasing with someone else, they can also have their account. So a maximum $80,000.
Got it.
And it's tax free. With this account, there's no, like the RSP, you have 15 years where you have to pay it back.
Yeah.
In this one,
I think I'm still paying mine back. I know
does take some time, but for this one, it's just a mere savings account.
Right.
So another good way to shelter some money from tax and also save for that first time home purchase.
Got you.
And the other just things that are options are, gifts from family. But it is important that sometimes lenders will ask for proof that it's a gift and not a loan to pay back.
Yeah, I think I was reading a study where most first-time home buyers that bought recently, it was money gifted from their family, right? So yeah, you better hope you got a rich family or, one thing I'm always passionate about with people that are, let's say, trying to get into the market and have parents where they're sitting on, properties where the home is like paid off or there's a lot of equity. I say to these potential buyers, I'm like, maybe you should speak with your parents, right? Like, God forbid your parents pass away like long after, you're now already into your second, third home, but it's like, you need the money today because if your parents, let's say they pass like 20 years from now, you might not need the money then. Like you need to get in the market now. So whether your parents are okay to maybe tap into some of that equity and get like a reverse mortgage where they can help you, or, a line of credit or some way that they can tap into the equity to help you today to get into the market, right? Like, I know it's a hard conversation to have with family sometimes, but it's a real conversation, right? Like, and maybe your parents might say, you know what, actually, that sounds like not a bad idea, right? And maybe they'll even invest in a property with you, right? I think that's another sort of thing that I talk to people about, right?
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people, they just don't even understand how it works, like in terms of the equity that's built up in a home and that you can take some equity out and still own the home, right? So I think even just educating and providing that guidance and that knowledge is helpful because then they can have those conversations with family, right?
Yeah, and there's so many people sitting on homes with lots of equity where they could either pull it out and buy an investment property and maybe like your parents might be like, hey, like I'll buy you this condo, you live in it and eventually it'll be yours because they'll hand it down to you. There's just so many different options out there. Another incentive I think we forgot to mention was the first time home buyer rebate on closing for land transfer. Right. So that's a big one. I mean, you can only use it once, but you just have to qualify, not having owned anything ever around. I don't know how they're even going to find that out, but you sign an affidavit with the lawyer saying like, I've never owned property anywhere else. And then you get a rebate. I think you said it's up to $4,000, right?
Yes. So the rebate's $4,000. But in Toronto, because there is double the land transfer tax with the municipal tax, you get the $4,000 provincial and then an additional $4,500 for the municipal tax. So definitely something to take advantage of. And that credit comes on closing. So that's does help out a lot.
For sure. Like the family you just worked with, like how did they save up for their down payment and sort of were they looking for a while? Like what can you share?
Yeah. So the family, I met them last spring. And that's when they started their search. They had some funds saved up. They had some from overseas. So they went over the holidays and brought some of those funds back. And then they did the 5% down. They will be taking advantage of the tax credits as well on closing. And that was a big impact in their decision and their ability to afford. So we really, it was key for them to talk to the mortgage broker, find out like what is the max price, right? There's no point in shopping around in a price point that is not achievable, right? And it also just, we did see a couple of properties that were far beyond their budget. But then when you look at what is, then in comparison, it's a lot harder to fall in love with something that with a less price tag, right? So that was a good learning experience for them as well. But just staying within your means, right? Like if your max pre-approval is X, then looking at properties within that and just trying to get into the market and using that as a stepping stone. So they are overjoyed, thrilled, so happy to own a real estate in Canada. And also just
because were they immigrants to the country or?
Yes. So they came to Canada about 5-6 years ago. And they're renting in Erin Mills.
Okay.
So they drive by this condo every day and just the sense like of pride and achievement.
Anita, you're going to make me cry.
Oh my God.
I'm kidding.
It just honestly.
No, that's very sweet.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine like the dream always seems to be home ownership for all immigrants, right? So, I mean, I remember my parents, they rented for 16 years. So we grew up in Mississauga, Highway 10 in Dundas. And my parents were renting for that whole time. And it got to a point, of course, my parents, immigrants, where my mom said to my dad, like, either you buy something or we are not going to be together anymore. Like she literally gave my dad an ultimatum and then they ended up buying their first home. Right. But yeah, it's like every immigrant's dream is to own and not rent. So I can totally see how that's a big deal for them. So yeah, that must have been a great feeling to help those buyers. And I know you love to work with first-time home buyers.
Yes, it's such a sense of accomplishment when you're at the end of the journey. And
when you reach the finish line.
yes, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Just another thing I wanted to mention is what I'm also seeing a lot of is siblings coming together or multi-families purchasing together. So that I find that's another way. Maybe if each has a 500,000 affordability budget, if you put that together, you can get into a freehold property or maybe something with a rental unit in the basement, and that can help with the mortgage as well. And
you got to think outside of the box nowadays, right? So the other thing I wanted to chat about was opportunities in the market. So as a first-time home buyer, obviously you don't want to buy in a seller's market. You want to buy in a buyer's market or a balanced market, right? So we just came out of a really great opportunity, which was the fall of 2023, where we were saying to people, you've been sitting on the sidelines for years. Get in now. It's a buyer's market in many places all around the GTA. There was no multiple offers. Properties were just sitting there. I remember we listed Bristol, the condo at Bristol.
Yes.
And Daquan was like, I don't understand how this hasn't sold yet. And it was like, I know, me too, because it was like 550-ish range.
Yes.
And it was a 900 square foot, 2-bedroom, like beautiful unit with a loft. And it was just such a slow market. It was the slowest market we'd seen as realtors in 20 years. I remember talking to agents. They were just like, what's going on? The Bank of Canada paused rates in the fall in September. All of us realtors were like jumping for joy because we were like, oh my God, we're going to have an amazing spring market. And it didn't happen. First time in 20 years. Do you remember, Anita, how slow it was?
I remember we hosted 2 open houses, South Mississauga, so prime.
This is
prime
Ifield
area.
we're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah. Sheridan
And
neighborhood, yeah.
Nobody.
No one came.
No one. And then we did it again in the new year, and
Totally different. Yeah.
completely, but crickets.
Yeah, so that was the time to buy. We actually helped a couple, Ezekiel and Clarice, if you're watching. They listened to everything, all the advice. They got to buy a place in not a bidding war. They got to take their time, shop around, put conditions in offer, which is not the case right now. Like, things have changed so quickly. And that's why when you're a first-time home buyer, especially, you need to be watching for the opportunities in the market, like what was fall, right? So now, even as we're speaking, your same first-time home buyers that just bought, maybe a week or two from now, like they're not going to be able to purchase, like, because they would have not been able to compete with other people that can go higher in terms of price or no conditions and aren't scared to compete because that's the market.
Absolutely. And with, there's a lot of predictions, and economists are predicting that interest rates will go down this year, right? So with that news, the buyer sentiment really changes.
100%.
And then the confidence and spring market.
We saw that January 1st, January 1st, 2024. I remember I was driving home from Montreal. We'd spent the time in Montreal over New Year's. And I was driving home, and I remember getting all these messages. Like, my inbox was flooded. My phone starts ringing. I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? And we as realtors feel these changes first, right? The news is lagging. You cannot listen to what CP24 is saying about the market or based on the TREB stats, because they are dated. We see it first, right? So as a first-time home buyer, those are the times to buy when nobody else is buying. But I don't know why. It's like people are just like, oh, okay, no one else is buying. I'm not going to buy either. I'm like, oh my God, that is the time to buy.
But it's that, that security and the FOMO almost, right? So if others are doing it, then it's that rush and that push. You don't want to miss out. So you're out there as well. And now, like, as soon as the rates drop, we see house prices are just going to go up, right? Because typically rates go down, prices go up, right? Rates go up, prices go down.
Yes.
So I do still think that there are a lot of opportunities right now on the market, but as interest rates drop and we get further into the spring market, it is going to be very competitive.
Yeah, it's hard because the spring market is where there's more inventory, right? So buyers sort of want to wait to have more choices, right?
Absolutely.
And then that's the thing is, like, when there's more choices, there's more, buyers out there because everyone's been waiting for those choices, right? So if you're a buyer, I would say that the opportunities in the market are typically months like, let's say, January, the slower months of the summer. So July, August. Fall market is September. Typically, didn't happen last year, but typically September. And then, of course, the month of December is another great month. So December, January, July, and August, those are the months, let's say, where there could be some opportunity, right?
Completely agree. Yes.
And then, of course, when you're looking at months of inventory, the more inventory that's on the market, that means it's going towards a buyer's market, right? So those are the opportunities in the market to keep an eye on, right?
Absolutely.
We did also want to talk about how a first-time home buyer can set themselves up for success.
Really, I feel like it starts from, knowledge. Knowledge is power.
100%.
Right? And it's important. So on our team, we set up a buyer consultation. And it's really an opportunity for me to educate the client. So to walk them through the home buying process, right? Lay out the roadmap, how to have keys in hand and go from where you are today to the end goal, right? So we talk a lot about market trends. When is the best time to buy? And when is the best time for them to purchase,
of
right?
Course.
Because there could be some differences in that, the mortgage qualifying process, and running some numbers as well, right? And providing maybe some of the sales, like what is achievable within the budget that they're looking at.
And the pocket
right?
that they want to be in, right?
Absolutely. The pockets, the geographic areas. So it's a great opportunity to sit down and have that one-on-one questions, answers, walk through the entire process. And then, I find that sets someone up with such an advantage because they understand what's going on. They're prepared. They understand what multiple offers are, offer dates, and so forth, right? Because it can be really confusing. It's very complex and there's a lot involved.
Oh my God. I don't think people really, even when we sit with someone in a buyer consultation and sort of explain the process, like that's just like a high level, right? And then when they're in it, like I've had buyers where they say like, oh my God, like we feel so much more prepared, but this is still somewhat stressful. And so the thing is like, and I'm so passionate about this, Anita, I always tell people like your average realtor, what they do with a buyer is someone calls them. They go and they show them the house. They drive them around to see all these properties and they haven't even taken a minute to sit down with the person and be like, what are your must-haves? How much do you have saved? Have you ran the numbers? Like, I just don't understand how a buyer, when we offer this consultation, let's say, come sit down with us, like educate yourself. Who cares if you're not buying now? Who cares if it's not for like another year or two? But like, why would you not want to sit with a real estate professional that's going to show you the roadmap, like you said? But people still don't want to do it, Anita. Why?
I think, and it's free, right? It's free.
100% it's free.
Anything
Costs
other
you
than
nothing.
your time, right? And with COVID, we're now even able to do this on Zoom. So Zoom or in person in the office. I think it's just maybe, they're apprehensive or, the resistance I often get is I'm not ready yet. Like I'm not ready to
and we
be
get
in
that,
the market,
but we
right?
get that. Like,
yeah, no, absolutely. And we want to prepare them or as much as possible so that when the time comes and when you are ready for the market, at least you have all of the knowledge,
but
right?
that's the thing I don't get. It's like, okay, let's say you want to go to a university. You're going to research the university or like, even let's just say you're buying a car. You're going to test drive the car, research the car, like whatever, how many upgrades or what you want to do. You're like spending time. But I find it's not the same with real estate. Your average buyer does not do their homework. They literally end up buying a place on a whim. Nobody explains anything to them. And then they're like, oh my God, I just bought a place and it's not even the right one. Like, I just don't get how people turn us down. It's like, I can't speak to how other realtors run their business, but we offer this consultation and not enough people are open to it. And maybe it's fear. I just don't get it. Like, you're going to sit on your couch and watch Netflix shows for 2 hours, but you're not going to sit with someone for an hour and be educated about the home buying process.
No, I agree with you completely, Cynthia. I think it's a great opportunity. And, just even for this is going to be likely the biggest purchase of your life, right? Give yourself that. Like, give yourself the time, sit down, understand what's happening in the market, learn all you can learn, and be prepared.
And one other thing I want to say is it's free to hire a buyer's agent. It's free to have a buyer's agent to help you. You don't have to buy anything. Unless you buy something, that's how your agent gets paid by the sellers. But it's basically a free service for a buyer. It's a no-brainer.
Oh, I agree with you.
I just don't get it, Anita. But I know we're wrapping up, Anita. I just wanted to thank you for being on the show again. And there'll be more information on Anita in the show notes. But what I wanted to ask you before we wrap up, Anita, is tell me about the first home you bought. Like, I literally don't even know your first time home buyer story.
Yeah, for sure. So it was the year before.
She's like, it was the year of 1910. I'm kidding.
No, the year before I got married. My husband and we purchased a home in Square One, a condo.
Okay.
So our first condo, we purchased it 20 years ago. Yeah. And,
2002.
Yes.
Okay.
For $190,000. And we did put down, we were aggressive. Like, we wanted to be mortgage free. It was our goal. And so we put down a good down payment and we negotiated a rate with the bank a payment plan where we paid it off in 4 years.
Oh my God, Anita. Wow, that is intense.
Intense.
I mean, I'm not surprised because I know you. But so did you guys move into this condo?
Yes. So we moved into the condo. We lived there for 5 years. And then we sold it and used the equity from that condo to purchase our first detached
Amazing.
property.
Wow.
And that was actually in Churchill Meadows.
Was there a realtor involved in these two transactions, the buy and sell?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Did you have an overall good experience?
Yeah.
Or?
So we went with my uncle.
Oh, okay.
And he helped us with that purchase. But, leveraging that condo and because we were able to pay it off, the purchase price was significantly less than what you can get today. But that gave us, the leverage.
Of course.
To
you
get
built some
into-
equity.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing.
Exactly.
Wow. Very cool. Well, thank you for sharing that story. That's awesome.
You're welcome.
Yeah. And thanks for being on the show today.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning into the Beyond the Sale podcast. Remember to like, share, and subscribe on YouTube and listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. We'll see you on the next show.